Hello friends, it's Pam here, and this is number 5 in a little series I'm doing about my struggle with over helping, over responsibility, not being able to say no, boundary setting, just a lifelong struggle. And speaking of struggle, it has been a struggle to get this video going today. It is already early afternoon and I've been trying to do it all morning. And I think it's because I want to tell a hard story and I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be. I thought I could just turn on the camera, tell the story, yada yada. But when I sat down with my little red journal here and started, I thought I'd just put a few plot points down. Well, no, it was pages and pages and sitting and trying to remember and taking a break because I was feeling really overwhelmed. So I don't really know why I'm doing this because it's obviously it's maybe it's not too soon, like it's decades ago now, but maybe it's too raw to be just putting out there in the world. But I just feel compelled to do it. I know that I'm not going to get anything else done today until I just make this video and get it out there. So enough preamble. I know you've already clicked off the video. I don't blame you, but hey, stick around for just a second. I do have some reheated coffee because I felt the need to be fortified. So let's call this one a dark story. What can happen when you can't say no? Or something to that effect. It's basically a life story or a story from my life that kind of sums up what can happen, especially when you're, a young, naive girl out in the world. And, for those of you who need a trigger warning, I totally understand if you're already feeling uncomfortable and you just want to click off this video. Just go ahead and do that. Keep yourself safe and don't worry about it for a second. Now, nothing terrible happens in this story, okay? But it could have, and that's the point. All right, so the time I was in a dangerous situation with a man, shall we call him Gord? It's not his real name. Well, back in the day, I was renting a basement suite in Langley, British Columbia. It was on 264th, right across from a church. And, as a quick aside, I found out in later years that the church that was right across from the house where I was renting the basement suite was the church that my husband, where Dylan, went to church. I don't know if it was during this time, because this would have been around like the mid-90s. So he might not have been there anymore. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting looking back. A small but nice basement suite with a shared laundry. My friend and former dorm mate needed a roommate. And I can't remember all the details, but I just remember saying, sure, I can do that. And one thing that worried me a little bit about this place was, with this shared laundry, there wasn't really like a good locked door kind of between the upstairs and downstairs that I remember. And there were people living upstairs that I'd never met. And so I just thought it was kind of odd, like moving into a house and not really knowing who else was in the house. And it turned out that there was a young couple up there. They seemed normal enough. And so it carried on. But what I didn't realize was whoever owned this house also wanted to rent out other rooms upstairs. And so he was renting out, or she, I never met the owners, was renting out a room to somebody that, this guy, okay? And we didn't really worry much about making sure, the doors were locked. I don't remember what the laundry schedule was. I don't remember the details of that, but I just remember kind of having this unnerving feeling like, I don't really have privacy. And that was kind of escalated by the fact that I didn't really have a bedroom per se in this place. I was kind of like in part of the living area. It wasn't ideal, but I remember it being quite a nice, bright basement suite. And I think it was like quite a bit, above ground, because I remember there was a full window, full tall window. So anyway, it must have been around the mid-90s. So this guy, let's call him Gord, he suddenly appears one day, and he seemed harmless and friendly enough. I'm going to try not to look at my notes, but I probably will end up looking at them. So just bear with me, okay, for this one. Yeah, I wasn't home very much. I was in classes, I was working. I think I was working then at a little coffee house startup called Java Cava in Fort Langley. And I was one of the very first part-time employees hired. And so I was gone a lot. But this guy, Gord, he started appearing more and more. And eventually, I remember one day, he really wanted me to come upstairs. He was going to make me some tea. And I thought, oh, whatever, this guy is kind of annoying. But as always, I just said, okay, because I never wanted to rock the boat. I was and I am still very conflict avoidant. So I thought, the easiest thing to do is just what I always do, is just say yes, and then what could be the harm? He really wants to make me some tea. Now, I remember having the tea, and I think he had like a bunch of loose leaf teas, and it was kind of a novelty at the time. And looking back, I wondered, was the tea okay? Did he put something in the tea? I don't know. It kind of scares me now to think about. But at the time, I was so naive and just whatever, I just drank the tea. Yeah, I would do what he wanted just this one time. So I'm reading my notes here, and then find a way to distance myself from him. We had the tea. I think it was okay. And later I wondered about it. I began staying away from the house more. Then one day, Gord wanted to show me a photo of himself. It seemed harmless enough. It was a little bit odd, because I thought, why do I need a photo of you when you're right there? We see each other. And I know you're probably thinking, how could you be so stupid? And I think that about myself, so don't worry if you're thinking that. But I really just thought he was this friendly guy, and I didn't think he was interested in me at all, because I was probably 20 and he was in his probably early 30s. And in my mind, that was so far, above me, or so much older than me, that he couldn't be interested in me. Does that make sense? So I said, okay. And he came downstairs, I remember, to the little living area we had, and he showed me, I think he had a couple different photos, and he wanted me to have one. And so he insisted that I kind of pick one out. And so I said, okay, here, thank you. And, I was always just polite and kind and pasted a smile on my face. When I think about it, it's that's kind of, my MO. It's kind of how I've operated all my life. Anyway, so where was I? This is when I think, this is when I felt something was off. So this is when I think things turned from not saying no, because it was just easier, and, let's just whatever, it'll be fine, to not saying no, because I was a little bit nervous, right? I wasn't just avoiding conflict. Now I felt like there would be consequences. Like I felt like I couldn't say no to this person, and just the way he was very insistent. And it's something, to think back on now, how he kind of slowly turned up the heat in the proverbial pot where I was the careless and unsuspecting frog. The next escalation in Gord's behavior was insisting that I should give him a photo of myself. So that's kind of where this was going, right? And I figured, oh, okay, he's giving me a picture because he wants a picture of me. And in his mind, that was just what people did. So I remember resisting this because, first of all, I don't like photos of myself. I hardly have any photos of myself. And which is kind of funny why I'm, being on YouTube and making thumbnails is, I always think it's so unlike me. But anyways, at the time, I had almost no photos of myself. So I think I eventually found something I could give him. Maybe it was like a school picture, like a university school picture. Don't quote me on that. But I think I found one to give him. But now I was uncomfortable. I avoided him and kept to myself. I came home late and I left early. So I was getting more uncomfortable, but I still didn't put up a boundary, right? I had already kind of let him into my life enough that it was like we were not just acquaintances, but we were a little bit like friends, right? And I didn't have any evidence that this was a bad guy. I just felt uncomfortable. And I think it was because I knew that if I did try to say no to something he wanted, that he would be mad. You know how you can just tell that about people? So then one weekend morning, I woke up, instead of in the dark, I woke up in the light, and, I'd slept in. It's probably a Saturday or a Sunday or something. And there was Gord. There's this guy standing on the other side of this full-length window, and he was just staring at me. And I don't even know to this day, like, how did that happen? I think maybe we had a curtain up there and the curtain was pulled back. And you know how when it's dark at night, you don't really notice that the windows are open. Probably just because I was like that naive type of person. But there he is. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Like, what is he doing there? So I just remember sleepily sitting up and just kind of being in shock and being like, and then he was gesturing to me like, you gotta, get up, come out, you gotta talk to me. He wanted to talk to me. And I think at that point, I had been sort of telling my roommate, like, what do I do about this? Like, what do I do about this guy? Like, he won't leave me alone at this point. And she was just frustrated with me because, like, whatever, just deal with it, just don't talk to him. Like, how hard can it be? But I don't think, she realized that, it was harder for me. Then one day he started asking me to go to Dairy Queen. I remember he just was really wanting to go to Dairy Queen. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. That almost seems like, now I'm thinking, oh, that almost seems like a date, right? Like, and I said, well, as long as we're just going as friends, and I really didn't want to go, but I also was afraid. At this point, I was afraid of him. And instead of running away, I just thought, well, the best thing is to kind of, what's that word? Placate, or I know there's a word because I used to teach it in World War II history, where, Chamberlain, appease. Okay, appeasement. I was an appeaser. I thought if I just appeased him, if I just went along this one time, it was always like that. I'm like, okay, I'll just cave in, and then I'll figure out a way to distance myself. But it just wasn't working, right? And it was kind of like out of hand, but I didn't realize how out of hand it was. So I started to be afraid when we were in Dairy Queen, because he started making this huge fuss because he wanted to give me a balloon. They had a bunch of balloons there, and they were for the kids, right? Or they were maybe something to do with a donation. I can't remember. You made a donation and you got a balloon, something like that. So he wanted to give me a balloon, and the staff were saying, "No, those are just for the kids," right? And he was really mad. He actually started yelling in the Dairy Queen. And I was like, I just have to get him out of here, right? So he grabbed a balloon for me, and I pretended to be grateful, and we went out, and I think it was the same day, or it might have been a different day. I wish I had a better memory, honestly, but it's like there's these very colorful, very real pictures that stand out, but the rest of the film is kind of blurred out, it's kind of blacked out. So it's hard to piece things together exactly, but I do have a really good memory of some things. So he wanted to introduce me to his mom and dad. He said, "Oh, you have to meet my mom and dad." I don't remember if he said that or if he just said, "There's someone I want you to meet." But I just remember feeling kind of powerless. We're driving around the rural back roads around Langley for quite a while, and we were getting farther and farther away from the house. And I'm like, oh man. And then we went down this nice little driveway. I remember this narrow driveway up to quite a beautiful house, fairly modest, but just really beautifully decorated, and knocked on the door and went in, and there, sure enough, were his parents. I can still picture them, what they looked like. And they seemed really surprised to see him and really surprised to see me. And I just remember it was the scariest thing because they were so silent. It's like they were quite still. They didn't really say that much, they kind of let him do all the talking, and I was trying to talk and just make things seem normal. But looking back now, knowing what I know now, I realize they were probably terrified. I don't even know the whole situation, but they seemed really uncomfortable, right? They were sitting very still in their chairs. And so eventually the visit, came to a close, and we said our goodbyes at the door and drove away. And I remember him asking, "What did you think of them?" And I was at this point just like, if I ever get back to the house, I have to do something about this. I have to, figure something out. So I think it was shortly after that, that my friend Terry came over. So I'm skipping through the stuff that I just told you. And okay. Then one day, my friend Terry, a good guy, and one of my first friends at university, was there for some reason. I don't know why he was there. He might have been helping us move something heavy. That would make sense. I don't know, but I barely saw him at this point. He was working full time, and he was either about to graduate or had already graduated. And he was really busy. And anyway, he was sitting on the couch, and suddenly he noticed this picture of Gord, we were calling him, on the coffee table. And I just remember he went quiet. He went kind of still, and he's like, "Who's this? Where did you get this?" And I said, "Oh, that's this guy upstairs. He insisted on me having a picture of him, and he's insisting on me giving him a picture back." And I don't know. I was just kind of embarrassed about the whole thing, right? And he said, I gotta go check something. And I was like, okay. He said, "Just stay home, stay here, and I'm gonna call you, stay by the phone," right? This is pre-cell phone. So stay by the phone. And I said, okay, I can do that. I trusted Terry. He had proven to be a good friend kind of over and over already. And after a while, the phone did ring. I don't remember how long it was, but it was Terry. And he asked, "Are you okay? Are you alone?" I said, "Yes." And I remember he didn't really give me any details. He kept it very lighthearted on the phone, which I think was wise of him, right? And he couldn't have been much older than me, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years older than me. And he said, can you get in your vehicle, can you drive to Fort Langley right now and meet me at this bench by the cemetery? So when you go into Fort Langley, the cemetery is on your left-hand side, so you're on the main drag, and there used to be, I don't know if there still is, but just some benches there, right, for people to sit on. So I was like, okay, I know where that is. And so I just did what he said. I got in my car, my Ford Explorer at the time, and I drove to that bench, and I sat down. And I remember too, he had said, make sure nobody follows you. So I knew there's something serious going on. He said, make sure you're not followed. And if you are followed, reroute and until you're not followed, and then come, right? So I was like, okay, I made sure nobody was following me, that I could tell, and sat down. And he said, what did he say? I want to get this right. He said, did you know I have been working at the maximum security prison? And I said, oh, no, I knew you were doing something in security, but I didn't realize it was that. Wow, maximum security. And he said, okay, just listen. I saw that picture and thought I recognized the place. It's from the prison that I work at. And he said, I know that background, and I figured out who this guy is. And that's when he told me this guy just got released from 5 years of maximum security solitary confinement. And he said he's been in solitary the entire 5 years. And that's why I wasn't sure when I saw the picture who it was. And my heart was just beating. My heart's beating now, because he told me that he SA'd a 19-year-old girl and left her for dead in a ditch. And the only reason that he only got 5 years is because the girl lived, or something like that. And so, wow, it just really hit home that he could have been grooming me to be his next victim. And Terry saved me. I'm so grateful to Terry to this day. He helped me, went back to the house, and we loaded up everything as fast as we could. I don't remember if he let me come out of the vehicle, I think. But unfortunately, somehow Gord got wind, or he figured out something was up, and he stole my guitar and some other things of mine. And my guitar, even though I wasn't a great guitarist, it was precious to me because my parents had taken me to pick it out for a birthday present. And I remember sitting there in the music store and trying out all these guitars and deciding on this one. And it was a beautiful and fairly expensive guitar. And yeah, he loaded it up and took off with it and a bunch of other stuff. To this day, I don't know why. It's very confusing. But I got out of there, and my roommate was very mad at me. She didn't understand. She just thought I was being stupid, and why did you have to do this? Why couldn't you just stay away from him? And I mean, I think she'd probably be more understanding today, but at the time she was just mad because it meant she had to get another roommate or she had to move out. And I think I gave her the money, for a month's rent. And I think I stayed in a dorm or somewhere for a bit. Man, I wish I had a better memory, but anyway, I was safe. That's the point. I do remember when I was driving back and forth after that, always looking, always kind of having, always looking in the rearview mirror, always looking around before I got out of the vehicle. I was nervous for a while. And I think I really wanted to tell this story because it shows how dangerous it is, it's not just a personality flaw. It's kind of, I think it's a trauma response. When it leads to more trauma. When you don't have boundaries, bad people, they can sense that and they move in. When they can sense that you don't know how to say no, you don't have a strong sense of self, it's like they have a radar for that. And I think it's so important to teach our young people to model good boundaries, to actually talk about these things and make sure that our kids and people we know and ourselves, that we have a strong enough no, that we don't attract predators. And I am so grateful to God that he saved me from that situation. I'm so grateful to Terry, because where I wasn't able to protect myself, God put someone, God put someone there to protect me. And the sad thing is this is not the only story I have like this. This is probably the worst one in a way, or could have had the worst, outcome. But I am unpacking a lifetime of not being able to define where I end and other people begin. Conflict avoidance, freezing, fawning, that whole thing. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of it in real time. And I want to, I want to turn the page on that. And I just thought this story really illustrates what I'm talking about. Because in a lot of my videos, I kind of talk about innocuous things that aren't really that big of a deal. And I'm doing that on purpose. I'm doing it to illustrate what I'm talking about, but without setting off any alarms, or freaking anybody out. But it is essential to know how to say no. And I think that, we need to model and teach our young people before we send them out into the world how to recognize predatory behavior, how to look for red flags, and just learn to let our yes be yes and our no be no. So I think that's all. I've gone on for a long time with this story. So if you made it this far, thank you for listening to me. And I hope that I hope that somehow this story can help someone to either recognize when they're not in a good position, to recognize when they might be getting taken advantage of, and just take a step back. And if you don't feel comfortable, if things aren't feeling right, if things are feeling off, get out of there. Step away, say no, and be safe. So, thank you, my friends. I will talk to you again soon. See you in the next video. Bye.